What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to go over my top 10 games of 2021. So this is my own Game of the Year awards. Jeff Keighley had his time. Nobody cares about what IGN, Kotaku, all of them are doing. I want to tell you guys about a top 10. Instead of just giving you my Game of the Year, I want to go through a list of 10. I'm going to have a couple other videos like this talking about some of my most disappointing games, as well as games I'm most anticipating next year. They will kind of be ranking videos as well. So just a few things to look forward to as we approach Christmas. Thank you, guys. I'm going to get rid of my face now. We're going to go into video parts of this, and we'll talk later. All right, so jumping to honorable mentions. I don't want to leave these out. While I did play, in fact, I did play a ton of games this year. I wasn't even able to limit myself to 10. I wanted to give 2 honorable mentions. The first being the Dark Pictures House of Ashes. Very solid game, much more solid than I thought it was going to be. This was a year of surprises for me for a lot of games, and this game really stood out. I was hoping for a solid game, and it became easily the best of the Dark Pictures, and a good sign, I would say, for Supermassive games going forward. The other honorable mention I want to give to Halo Infinite. I really like the game. I love the multiplayer, and it's one of the most addicting things in my life right now. But, as I'll talk about with the other games on my list, I did find the other ones better. But I don't want to, leave this list without telling you guys that I did very, very much like Halo Infinite. Coming in at number 10 is the first big game that released in 2021. If you guys remember, Hitman 3 did actually release in 2021. It got forgotten at the Game Awards, but not here, boys and girls. Hitman 3 is number 10. An amazing game. An amazing, amazing game. I'm a fan of Hitman while also kind of calling myself not a fan, because I like the games, but I've never really been able to get into them as deep as I should. And Hitman games are like that, right? Where you're supposed to get in and you're supposed to replay the levels. I never really did that for many Hitman games, and that's a sin. I mean, I'm going to put that when I die, I'm going to have to confess that. But in reality, this game did all the things right, in my opinion. I found myself, and I live streamed this game multiple times on the channel. I played Hitman 3 over and over and over and over again, all the different levels, and tried out different things. This was the first Hitman game where I really wanted to experience, well, what if I handled it this way or that way? So I think they built an ultimate sandbox. I cannot wait for their next game, and I think Hitman 3 was a phenomenal ending to a really good trilogy, and honestly, an underappreciated trilogy. Number 9 is Little Nightmares 2, another game that got completely forgotten. No, it came out in February. It was a smaller game, relatively speaking. I mean, it's a solid franchise, and it's a solid name, like in terms of how much weight it holds. But again, got forgotten from the Game Awards, but not here. This was a great game. To me, it took a little bit longer to get going than I think for other people. I think a lot of people just enjoyed it throughout. I did. I mean, I liked the game throughout, but I really thought the game got really, really good the more you played it. And the ending was, it's so good. The game itself is very good. I mean, it does that tension like very few games actually can. You know what I mean? Where we don't have a world where we get that many games like a Limbo or Inside or, this game, Little Nightmares. We don't have a lot of them. I mean, I just listed 3 that are really good, but, this is a special occasion, in my opinion, when games like this come out. And again, this game did not disappoint. Coming in at number 8 is Kena Bridge of Spirits. I can't believe it's this low, but yet again, it's also on my list, and it's number 8. And you'll see there's some, really good games, I think, above this. I love this game. I loved it. It did everything. I guess it matched everything that I wanted for this game. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, I've been covering this game and talking about it literally since the first time we saw it, which I believe was last June, like June 2020, at that PlayStation event where they announced the PS5, they announced Miles, all of that stuff. They also announced this game, and from that point on, I was in. I talked about it. I said how much I loved at least the visuals, right? Well, it turns out there's a lot more to the game than just the visuals, which is all you could have gone off of then. This game is beautiful start to finish. It is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. The combat, I could not believe how good the combat was. Remember, I was saying leading in, I don't know about the combat. Like, could it be good? Could it not be good? No, it actually carries the game in several settings. The weakest part of the game is the story, and arguably Kena herself. Now, I do like her, and I think there's plenty of room to grow with her as a character, and I do like her. I do think she's a solid character, but if I had to say a weakness of the game, it actually, funny enough, would be her as a main character. But, it matched it. I wanted this game to be something special, to be a special game from Ember Lab, being their first game, being an indie game, just nail it. And it did. It nailed every single thing I wanted from this game, and something surprised me, like the combat, of just how addicting and good it actually was. Number 7 is a little bit of a cheat. I don't like to do this, so that's why I'm not putting this higher, because I think realistically I would put this higher, is the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Now, I don't like to put remasters or remakes are kind of a little bit more iffy, but especially remasters, I don't like to put them on my lists or when I talk about my favorite games of the year because they've already come out. But in reality, I have to talk about it because it's so special to me. Mass Effect is such a special franchise to me, and just how good it is. They nailed it. I mean, this is how you do, in my opinion, a remaster. 2 and 3, there are differences. They're notable jumps, even if they're not the biggest things of all time. And then 1, it's not a remake, but I would say it's closer to a remake than a remaster. It's amazing. Again, if this was just talking about which games I think are literally the best, this would probably actually be top 3 or top 2 just because Mass Effect 2 and 3 are some of my favorite games of all time, so it's a little unfair. So I'll put it lower because it's just a re-release, but it got everybody back in. The hype for Mass Effect was, I believe, at an all-time high this past May. I had a blast. I played all 3 games, sunk in, I don't even know, 100, 125 hours, into all 3 of these games. Loved it. Did literally everything possible, including all of the DLCs in all of the games that they gave. Incredible. Number 6 is Resident Evil Village. A very good game. A very, very good game. I think now we've entered the next level, the mid-tier, but the mid-tier is actually really, really good on my list. It was hard. It was hard to put this, in comparison to the games we'll get to. But, I think just fondly of this game, I think a lot of people do. Even, the Game Awards, the actual award part meant nothing to me. I've said it before, it should mean nothing to anybody except for maybe the people that get the awards, right? But one thing that it did do is remind me how special or how good or how much in the minds of people some of these games were, right? Resident Evil was probably the best example of a game that just kind of took over everything, right? For the first 2-3 weeks of May, it was all Resident Evil. I mean, it sold incredible. It was a really good game, and you have every Let's Player on planet Earth, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, all these people playing the game, right? It just invaded pop culture in a way, invaded the internet in a way that, honestly, very few games did, and I would argue no other game on my list did it. And this is the game that did, I would say, better than any game on my list. With that being said, it wasn't the greatest game of all time. Ethan is not the greatest character out there. The game was pretty darn short, even though I didn't mind the length. It just, I actually was rewatching Markiplier play Resident Evil 7. I do think in a lot of ways it was a step back from RE7, just having watched it again. But I mean, I just think back to how, I think back fondly to it. The game was really good. It had a high quality bar throughout it. I didn't necessarily like some of the choices that they made, right? But overall, I'm not really gonna complain. It was an awesome experience, and honestly, an experience that you don't really get with any other of the games that came out this year. Number 5 is Returnal. This may make people mad because I know there's a lot of Returnal fans on my channel that want, Returnal very, very high on any list. An incredible game. Another game I look back on, and I didn't play this game nearly as much as I should have. I still want to go back to it. Maybe I can go back to it now that, there's not much going on later this month, and in January, there's next to nothing. Returnal is definitely a game I want to jump back into because I just had so much fun. Again, thinking back to Returnal, I think the gameplay in that game is honestly unmatched. It's so good, and I've always liked Housemarque. I've said it before, Nex Machina, Resogun, Nex Machina, in my opinion, is the best Housemarque game, still, including better than Returnal, but I loved it. I loved Returnal. I love the idea of it. The combat, again, is just so satisfying, and it's a Housemarque game through and through. I'm so happy that it's released. It's not a game for everybody, and I'm so happy about that because I think we need some games that aren't literally, because that's not how things work. So I'm kind of happy about that this game, you have to be in a specific mindset. And look, you may suck at the game. I'm not very good at the game, right? But you either play it or you don't play it, and you either kind of admire it for what it is or you don't. And that's totally cool, and I get why that would hold it back to some people. But I mean, this is a very, very special game. Number 4 is Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I actually swapped this. When I was thinking about it now, I swapped it. But really leading into me thinking about this was always my number 3, but I'm gonna put it at number 4 because I'll talk about number 3 in a second. It was so good. It was so, I said it back in the day. I reviewed this game. I reviewed, by the way, I think most of the games I've talked about, I've done actually every game I've talked about, I've done some sort of coverage of on my channel. In one way or another. Ratchet & Clank, I just remember, and I'd said in my review, I've said it ever since, just smiling the entire time. The Ratchet & Clank is the embodiment of fun. You're just having fun throughout the entire game. And I'm not saying every game needs to just be pure fun, start to finish. You don't have to think too hard or whatever. I'm not saying that. But I do think generally the idea of games being fun have left us over the last 2 to 4 years for whatever reason. Again, I'm not saying every game needs to be, but Ratchet & Clank is a perfect example of what happens when you have a game that is that good or is that fun, right? Literally, you can ask anybody in my family that was sitting watching me play it. I was smiling and enjoying myself from start to finish, which is, honestly, that is a rarity. That's a special, special thing that you don't always get. And then add on top of that, visuals. The story actually was very, very good. Again, well acted, all of that stuff. The combat was awesome. The usage of the PS5 was amazing. I mean, there's no complaints. I don't really have a major flaw in this game whatsoever. I would say maybe the biggest flaw is that nothing majorly stood out, but except for the fun part. But I would say in terms of maybe the story or characters, was there a shining star? Maybe not. But it was a very consistent, I talked about Resident Evil consistently, elite, on a good level. This game was that. Just throughout the entire thing, the quality, which you would expect from Insomniac and PlayStation, right? Just throughout the entire thing, the quality bar is always high. Number 3 is It Takes Two. So this was the swap. I had It Takes Two pretty much in my head throughout this year at number 4 and Ratchet & Clank at 3, but I'm going to swap it, and I'm going to say, honestly, it's because of the Game Awards. Weirdly enough, it's not because of Josef Fares and all that stuff. It's not because of that, but seeing the game again and just kind of thinking about it again, because I think this is a game that kind of suffers from another game that came out very early, I believe in March, right, of the year, which isn't that early, but now it feels like forever ago. So you could argue it, right? But it came out so long ago, I think it falls victim to people forgetting about it. But when you do think about it, you say, oh my God, it easily was one of the best games of the year. And actually one of the better games. Some of these games in the 5, 6, 7, 8 category of my list, they wouldn't make it if I included last year or let's do 3 years combined. It wouldn't make a top 10. I don't think so. I think there was a lot of really good games this year and then very serviceable games that wouldn't make it if I combined more than 1 year. It Takes Two would make it. It absolutely would, because it's just such a special game. It's a feel-good story that, again, I'm not saying every game needs to be like that, but when you have a game like It Takes Two that nails it, you feel it. You feel it. Visually, oh my dear God, it looked incredible. Playing this with my wife, our first game we ever played together was A Way Out from the same studio. So we have kind of a bond, with that studio and with the games that they create. And I loved A Way Out, and I think this game is way, way better than A Way Out. It's so good, start to finish. A game that truly every single level feels different. Obviously, there's going to be some fundamentals and mechanics that are the same, but really making it feel like you're always doing something different and changing up the atmosphere and the setting. It's incredible. And again, the more I talk about it, and I'm sure, I'm not watching videos when I'm saying this out loud, but obviously we'll see clips as I'm talking in the video. It just, whenever I think about this game or talk about or see it, I just think how amazing it is, and I think that really stands up to me. Number 2, I have to give a number 2 and number 1 because it's a top 10 list, so I can't say they tie. So I'm going to make the definitive statement here that Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is my number 2. It's an incredible game. It was the second biggest surprise of the year by a lot. I would say by a lot. I did not expect this game to be anything special. I expected at best that it would be serviceable, that it would be a solid game. We'd play it. There'd be complaints, there'd be praise, and we'd kind of move on. I didn't think that it would be game of the year, that it would be, my second favorite game this year, because from start to finish, and this game takes a little while to get going, but not real, more like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then you're in, and then it's absolutely insane. And that's it right there, right? Visually, the facial animations are incredible. I did not expect that either. The story is so good, and you really, I think, based off of anything they showed previously, or previous to the game coming out, you would never have expected the story and emotions and the characters to hit and work as well as they did. They didn't give any indication it would be this good. And I think that's actually a sin and a crime, but they made up for it because their game rocked. You know what I mean? Soundtrack, incredible. Gameplay was definitely the weakest thing, but it wasn't bad. In fact, again, going in, I was like, yeah, the gameplay does not look good whatsoever. That was the thing I was the most down on. Again, what is it the best thing about the game? The gameplay? No, it's easily the worst. But it's still pretty darn good. Like, the worst thing in this game, I'd still say, is like a 7 or an 8. It's really good. I enjoyed the combat throughout. The enemy variety was okay. It was, it got really good, and then it kind of slowed down, and it actually completely stopped. But the strengths of this game absolutely carry it away to make it the second best Marvel game that's out there. Spider-Man probably being number 1 and this being number 2. I don't think there's many arguments there, right? Incredible. So happy for Eidos Montreal, and so happy for, the community that we got an incredible Marvel game that I don't think expected to be it. Which means number 1, for those that have paid attention to me and the channel, is Life is Strange True Colors. The number 1 surprise. The number 1 surprise of the year, I wouldn't say maybe by far, because Guardians of the Galaxy surprised me as well, but this was a game that I had hoped for so much, but I also didn't expect. It's kind of weird, right? Because I love Life is Strange 1. Will always be one of my favorite games ever. Okay, it still is. I still think the first Life is Strange is better than True Colors, but it's close, and I know a lot of people actually think True Colors is better, which is fine, and I won't argue that, but that's how much I care, right? Life is Strange 2, I've said it before, is just god-awful. I hate it. So going into this game, I was saying, oh my god, I love the franchise, but they need to bring it back to the roots, and this is Deck 9, so, obviously before the storm. And again, though, in terms of my expectations, I didn't expect much. In fact, I would say the closer we got to the game, the less I was hopeful that it would be good. I actually kind of went in the day before thinking this is not going to be good. I feel like I've made up my mind that this won't be good. And my dear Jesus, it was incredible. In terms of performance, Alex Chen, right, the main character, oh my god, oh my lord, the facial animations, I talked about them for Guardians. Life is Strange is insane. It's insane how far Life is Strange, and I think there's still a kind of like a nice look to the first game just because of the art style. I think it still holds up in a way, but the lighting, the visuals, again, their facial animations in terms of expressing emotions, which is very important for a game whose main character, her powers is emotions, right? It's so important, and they killed it. They absolutely killed it. In terms of characters, they established a town, they established side characters that you care about, again, like Life is Strange 1, but unlike Life is Strange 2. The story was definitely, I'd say the story was probably the weakest aspect of it, but again, like Guardians, it was still very good. The worst part of Life is Strange would still be considered, in my opinion, very good. And then everything else is top of the class. The emotions, the character performances, my god, it was insane. I'm so happy, and that's really another thing that stuck with me. That's probably why maybe this is number 1 on my list, because when I think to this game, I think I cannot believe how good they did. How, in terms of everything stacked up against them, at least the things that I had in my own mind, stacked up against them, they destroyed it. Bravo to Deck 9. They should have won Game of the Year. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to make that statement for the Game Awards, but that's my top 10 list. Let me know yours in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. I know it was a longer video, but hopefully you guys liked it for what it is. Like I said in the beginning, there will be more videos like this over the coming days, so make sure you guys check it out. I got some pretty fun ones planned, and I hope to see you guys there.